Hi, my name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. The first story in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, is the story of Adam and Eve. I imagine many of you have heard the story before. I'll give you a real quick summary. God creates Adam and Eve, puts them in paradise in the Garden of Eden. And he says, you can have everything in this garden except the fruit of that tree over there. And in the very next scene, that's exactly where Adam and Eve are, in front of the tree. The very thing they can't have, they want. And ultimately, Eve has this conversation with the serpent. The serpent convinces her to eat the fruit. She eats the fruit. Then she goes over to Adam, gives him the fruit. He eats it. And then God comes to Adam and says, what have you done? Eating the fruit. And Adam does the most quintessential human thing. He blames Eve, his wife. And when God goes to Eve and says the same thing, Eve blames the serpent. And we see right at the very beginning of human life the blame game. The blame game, such an essential part of our human experience. The use of blame, setting responsibility and fault to others for things that we ourselves are really accountable for. And if you're a child growing up in the world today, you better quickly learn to understand how to use this blame game, or this world's going to squash it. Blame is kind of like the sword that we use in our relationships with each other. We parry with it, and we thrust with it, and we divert it, and we try to sidestep it because it has such huge consequence for us. I joked with my wife, Sally, after we got married that it was so great to be married again because I finally had someone to blame for my faults. You know, those dishes that sit in the sink? When you're single and they've been sitting there for days, you have only yourself to blame. If the house doesn't get vacuumed and you're single, you have only yourself to blame for that. If the laundry doesn't get done, or you've misplaced a watch or a wallet or a purse, you have no one but yourself to blame. And it can be quite exhausting after a while. And to be married again is so great because I finally have the relief of knowing I can blame someone else for my failings. And the only catch, of course, is that Sally can do the reverse and blame me for her failings. In the second story of the Bible, there's Cain and Abel, the children of Adam and Eve. And they grew up as young men. And they have this intense rivalry with each other. And their rivalry is for God's affection. And they bring this offering, each of them, to God. And Abel's offering is accepted. Cain is rejected. And Cain is furious and enraged by this. And God gives him a pep talk telling him how to solve the problem. Yet the next scene, they're out in the field and some little interaction, something minor happens, and Cain loses it. And he goes over and he kills his brother. He murders him. And that shows us in the second story just the power of rivalry, unbridled rivalry in life. And if you take the first story's blame game and you put it together with the second story's unbridled rivalry, you have this explosive force in human relationships come together. And it destroys relationships, it destroys marriages, it destroys communities, churches. It can cause huge wars between nations. World War I was caused by the blame game and unbridled rivalry coming together. It led to the death of millions and millions and millions of soldiers. Hitler took the blame game and he mixed it with unbridled rivalry. He took all the frustration of the German people and the depression and directed it at the Jews over many years, and it led to the final solution, which was the death of millions and millions and millions of Jews. And it has consequences in very small ways in our lives with each other. I'm certain that the explosions in Brussels that kills quite a number of people at its source was really the blame game being mixed with unbridled rivalry. And Jesus comes into the world to teach us a different way to live. Not to use the blame game and to let go of rivalry as our main ways of understanding each other. To get rid of these forces and replace them with what he calls the kingdom of heaven, which is at its source perfect love. He offers us the kingdom of heaven in his life with each other, with our lives with each other. He offers us the kingdom of heaven, which is perfect love and perfect peace coming together. You know, it's quite an irony that the world comes back with a vengeance. They scapegoat him. They bring the blame game and they bring unbridled rivalry, and it ultimately puts him up on a cross, and he dies there, and like all scapegoats, he should just disappear from life. And yet a couple days later, here he is resurrected, raised from the dead. And this isn't just about one guy coming back from the dead. It's about what it represents to us as well. Jesus lets us know that the kingdom of heaven project is still a go, and that there's still a different way we can live with each other. And we can set aside blame and rivalry, and we can take upon ourselves the perfect love and perfect peace that God intends for us. I mean, that's how God created Adam and Eve to live together, in perfect love and perfect peace. And when God came to them after the eating of that fruit from that tree they were not supposed to eat, it makes me wonder what might have happened then. Instead of blame, they had simply lived out that moment in perfect love.